Here we are, gang, on the official beginning of this IG Live. Show, of course, is called The Actor Overcomes. Now I'm Kevin E. West, veteran television actor, and, of course, founder and president of the award-winning organization, The Actors Network. And today, this is so good, it's April Fool's Friday. But there's nothing foolish going on about this particular live, so let's be clear on that. And today's subject matter, I call Three Avenues, which I deemed, I don't know. I came up with this probably somewhere in the mid to late 90s, probably-ish. And if you take time and listen to a lot of what I've discussed, if you ever happen to, like Will Dinsmore has, this book and read it, you'll find in my common expressions, whether they're written or whether they're verbal, that I can get pretty micro on some pretty specific deep dive details about not only being in this profession, pursuing this profession, but also handling all of it. Today, the Three Avenues is one of those where I pull back a little bit for you guys. Hey, Adapt Brands, whomever you might be, welcome in. I pull back a bit because often it's sometimes helpful for us to have more of a macro view about something as opposed to the micro. I think the micro is where, as the old phrase goes, devil's in the details. Yes, I think that actors in general do far too much macro and not enough micro. And that's a general statement. On occasion, before you get into some micro, it's also, hey, Richie, good to see you, man. My man, good to see you, bruh. Thanks for coming in. In this particular case, one of the things that happens with us is we get so caught up in the macro and then also try to dive into the micro that we sometimes, like it does in life, we miss the actual point of a foundation of something. So Three Avenues today, guys, is about that. There are ultimately, when we really talk about pursuing this profession, there are really ultimately three ways that this profession occurs with us and to us. And what's up, Boston? Wow, good to see you guys. Like old home week. I love it. Hope we're coming in from Alaska, man. Those three ways, I'm going to get it right out of the way right up front. Okay? Because we're always, what performers are looking for is exactly what the mantra, as I said last week, or on Wednesday, is the mantra of the Oscars, which is for your consideration. That's all we're ever working for. That's it. Whether that consideration comes through various ways, that's all anybody pursuing this profession trying to get what I call legitimate actor activity. You'll notice I try to bring things down to real simple phrases that I've done for nearly 3 decades. Increase the likelihood. You want to have simple things that make up what we're trying to do. And for your consideration is another one of those 3 words that's all we're looking for. Legit actor activity, for your consideration, increase the likelihood. Those 9 words literally make up a lot of what has generated 3+ decades of conversation about how to really pursue this business and deal with it. Good morning, Merrick. Good to see you, man. Boston. So here are the 3 things, just so everybody knows. I'm going to break them down for you, but these are the 3 things on the macro of the 3 avenues that I want you to keep way down low underneath, always on your mind. This business only occurs to us in one of 3 ways, and that is the process, as I call it, which I will explain, happenstance, which kind of speaks for itself, but of course I'm going to discuss that, and the third one, which is, to me, will always be the most important, you. What I mean by that, guys, on a real simple level, is the process is what I have always deemed as what we all know this process to be, of this profession. The business side of it, which is you either these days make a self-submission in some way, as you would have always back in the day with Dramalog or Backstage West in the U.S., wherever you may be abroad. You may have done that with a headshot and resume. Well, it's the same thing as a self-submission electronic today. Same thing. Don't turn it into something different. You either did that on your own to create some actor activity, or what we would like the process to be and work for us most often is we have a representative who takes our stuff, no matter how it occurs, and puts it out to the people interested in seeing actors. We get an audition, we get a call back, we book a job. That's the process. And that is one of the ways that this business, now there's obviously, I could put 200 hours into talking about that process, but that's the process. The other one is happenstance. And this is something that the most important thing I can say about happenstance is you cannot put happenstance into a weekly game plan. You can't put happenstance into a task. Yes, you can call it karma, the lottery, luck. I mean, it doesn't matter what words. Harmonic convergence was always one of my favorite jokes about happenstance. Sometimes in life, per the phrase and per the joke in in Forrest Gump, sometimes shit just happens, and that's happenstance. And if you want to look at, turn lemons into lemonade, you've got sometimes things that bad seem to happen, but it winds up being good. I'm going to delve into happenstance further, but number 2 is happenstance. It's just nothing you can control. But number 3 is you. And that is what you choose to do, what you choose to try and create. So as we go forward today for the next 20 minutes, please note, that's what you have. The process, happenstance, and you. And I realize all too well that we all would prefer, just as I would. I've had 46 representatives to this point in my life. I've stated over and over again, we would like the process to work 90% of the time so that all we have to do is go to class, be talented, and show up for when that is. And I'm not disagreeing with that, but what you can't do mentally to yourself, which is always a concern of mine in this profession, what you can't do to yourself is you can't turn the process into something that it isn't. When the process isn't working for you, that's when someone from my era metaphorically might walk up to the side of the TV and slap it and take the rabbit ears and try and get the picture to be clear. You have to constantly be paying attention to what the process is and what the makeup of your process is. That would be your agents, your managers, and whatever connections you have, whatever connections they have, so that the process works better for you. But the process is always about third party. It's not you. That's number 3, okay? Number 1's process is what is happening, as we would say, involuntary muscle, like your heart. It's just going on at all times. You got representatives, they're reading stuff, they're submitting you. That's just the process, man. But that is a huge part of your profession, a huge part of your career. But on the macro, which is what today is, it's one of the 3 ways, as a macro, that actor activity occurs. And just note it as, and that's why it's number 1. It's number 1, you guys. Hey, Carla, it's number 1 because it's the one that we're first told about. It's the one we most want to work for us. And it's the one we feel is the way the business is supposed to go. Number 2 is happenstance because this is a subjective profession. We are the pencil being sold, which is why I always do this with a pencil in my ear. I've been speaking like this for years, oftentimes with a hat on. You can't do anything about happenstance, but you can, here it comes again, increase the likelihood of how happenstance occurs or how it could occur, or we would say hedge your bet. There are things we can do. Now, I know we're coming out of a pandemic, but I think I'm pretty positive most of the people that are here this morning have been actors longer than the last 2 years. So yes, the last 2 years of, 20 and 21 have hindered our physical extensions out to people. Okay? Hey, D. Anderson, there's no question that the pandemic has done that. However, we are going to be slowly coming out of that, and we are going to not necessarily get back to the same normal, But we are going to be in the process of getting back to doing things more physically. And the more physically you're out and about, remember, we are a walking billboard for what we're selling. So the second avenue being happenstance in this profession, when we are the thing that is being interviewed, literally our physical shell, and we are the product like a pencil, then understand that every single place you go physically can and has had the potential to create happenstance in a positive way for your career. Yeah, some people just call it luck, or some people just call it, wow, I can't believe that happened. It was karma, dude. I don't care which you call it. Happenstance in Hollywood, using again Hollywood as a transcendent metaphor for every acting marketplace in the world. You could wind up getting into a fender bender with a showrunner from a television show you'd like to be on. Now that's both funny and something we'd all like to have happen to us as happenstance. That's not your agent or manager getting you an appointment for that show through the process. That's just some shit that happened on a random Tuesday. Same as you get invited way outside the realm of where you think you might encounter somebody from your profession, from this profession. You go to some dinner party with 6 people and you wind up meeting somebody who is involved in this industry in a way that you could never have imagined your friends at this dinner party knew. And so therefore, that's happenstance. But you can't put that in a weekly game plan. You can't pursue happenstance. I'm obviously a big advocate of not saying the word can't, and I'm a big advocate of doing everything you can. But happenstance is number 2 because that's life. Sometimes shit happens, and sometimes it winds up having a really good outcome, even though it doesn't look like it at the beginning. And sometimes happenstance is just the person you bumped into at the coffee line, and it turns out to be a great contact of yours professionally. That's part of the challenge of this profession. It's one of the reasons why this profession is frustrating. Because unlike other professions, guys, that can happen in entertainment. You can bump into somebody anywhere, through any realm, and have it wind up being a potential contact that leads to what we all want. Those 3 words, legit, actor, activity. That's what we want. That's what we're trying to get. So that's number 2. And number 3 of the 3 avenues, of course, is you. And one of the reasons why I probably started talking with actors in 91, but certainly the reason I continued the Actors Network. Hey, Joey, good to see you, brother. Hey, Carla. One of the reasons I continued to is because I was such a huge advocate of not sitting around and just waiting for the process to work out for me. That didn't mean that I didn't have agent or have a manager. It didn't mean that I didn't go do things to try and create awareness about knowing casting people. But that me going and doing that, that's the you part. And if you kind of look at happenstance and you kind of look at the process as being something, one, you can't control either of the two. You have a little more control with who your representatives are, but ultimately you can't make good luck happen in certain ways. And yeah, absolutely, Will. You're a walking billboard, man. In Sydney, in Melbourne, in Paris, in London, you could be grocery shopping and bump into somebody in your industry, which doesn't happen a lot in certain other industries. And it's different and matters more because we are the performers. We are the product being sold. We're the freaking remote that somebody may need next week, and we don't know that. But the only thing you can control, guys, is you. It's avenue number 3 of these 3. And that's the only one that you can control. And that's why almost all of what I talk about is a combination of how you attack this profession, all of the different people in it, and also the mentality, which is why I discuss so many things that are philosophical and psychological, because our human engagement with this community takes on a different feel than it does in other professions, because we're not just 2 people discussing pieces of information about a widget that we're going to sell. This is about us. So I will always go down the road of the you of the 3 avenues is the most important because of your psyche and where you're at. And here's the ironic part. Think about this. When the process does work for you and you get an audition through avenue number 1, exactly, yeah, that's very true, Paul. Todd, not only is tomorrow not promised to anybody, but we sure as hell don't know what's going to go down. Is that Amber Lawson in the house? We got Superstar here? Very cool. So what I was saying was, so let's pretend the process does work for you. And just to do a little reset with a couple of new folks who just walked in, it's now 9:20. This is 3 avenues, and the 3 avenues to create legitimate activity are either the process, happenstance, or you. And I'm discussing real quick. The irony in the process is, think about this. Let's say your agent does get you an audition. Let's say your manager does get you an audition. The irony of both the process and happenstance is both of them, especially in this profession, I know it's most of life, but both of those still wind up working their way back to you. Because once that audition occurs, then what do you have to do? What do you have to do? I just read yesterday for a guest star on SWAT. Well, the process worked for me. My representative got that audition, but then I have to spend 5-6 hours working on 5 pages of solid dialogue. So in the end, out of those 3 avenues, most of this profession still comes back to what you do. Obviously, this is the case with happenstance. It doesn't matter whether you got into a fender bender, whether you're at the grocery store or the coffee line, or as it happened to me once, not a joke, in a hot air balloon ride at 6 a.m. in Sedona, in a basket of a hot air balloon in which only 4 people could fit, myself and my girlfriend at 6 a.m., I'm totally hungover. I wind up in a basket, and the 2 other people across from us, not a joke, was one of the top casting directors in Los Angeles at the time. That's not a joke, it's a true story. Hey, Paul. So even though that's a great happenstance moment, it's a wonderful, thank you, Amber, and I was just trying not to throw up for the 2.5 hours of the ride. The great happenstance moment about that was, this is literally where these conversations came from. This happened to me in 1992. Why do you not believe this made its way into what I talk about as a professional performer pursuing this career? Because that shit happens. And I didn't, holy crap, I mean, and I was confined. I couldn't even walk away. It wasn't like I was at a party and I was in a conversation and I could go to the bathroom. I was stuck in the basket of a hot air balloon ride for 2.5 hours in the morning in Sedona at 6 a.m. Like, I had to make conversation. But that kind of happenstance, you guys, is possible everywhere at all times. And yet, even though it can be something that at the moment that it happens, yes, Carla, that's a great comment. Y'all all look at Carla's comment right there. Be interesting to do an inventory for yourself on happenstance. But this is one of the reasons, Carla, why, which I'll get into later, why I believe so strongly in having your master contact list together, and how the Squib book started in the Actors Network, which is you may have the name and the type of person that contact is, and you may have the date of how you met them. But what I always wanted you guys to write down in the Actors Network was just briefly describe the moment that you met them. Now, it may not have been happenstance, but the moment someone becomes no longer a stranger, and this also works in every single industry. You know, we all have some form of bedside manner that works in every form of industry. Yes, you can be, a lawyer, you can be an advertising executive and still accidentally run into somebody in your profession in a completely non-inspected environment, okay? And the basket of a hot air balloon was certainly that for me. But it doesn't matter. That's why I've talked so much about our language and our jargon and how we think. This is why I discuss so many things that are not black and white educational instructional about the professional industry of pursuing being a performer for money. It's why I talk about all these other things, because in that moment, none of that shit mattered. The moments of happenstance like that still come back to you and how you handle it. That's why you can give me the process, Kevin, and you can say happenstance happen. But at the end of the day, the you part of pursuing your career, in that moment, I may be reactive, not proactive, to the happenstance moment. Yes, absolutely, Amber, alignment. But in that moment, for those next 2 hours, my literal job interview potential with this casting director, while I was hungover, was completely dependent on me. It was completely dependent on what I did say, and oftentimes with our profession and our position, actors low in the totem pole, bottom of, stuff you don't say. And that's why the more you follow what I talk about this connection that we obviously have in our lives between our brain, our soul, and our gut, and what comes the hell out of our mouth. That can come out of your mouth today in a text, a social media post, a piece of marketing material that you create. This is all of the you of the three avenues. All of those things, whether it's happenstance or not. You can have an audition or a meeting, or you could go specifically to, which would not be happenstance, some type of professional industry event that you're choosing to go to, and you know there are going to be people there that you want to talk to, and it's not happenstance. This is my point overall. That makes it the same scenario. The difference is you know you're going and you know what's coming. Happenstance is like, I didn't know. But the process of doing things through your representative, the process of accidents that can be genius in life, accidental moments, both of those things involve other folks. The you of the three avenues is why that is 98.9% of the subject matter that I speak about in this profession. Because what you choose to plan to do, what you choose to research to then plan to do, what do you do to research, then plan, then formulate, then execute what you choose to do, whether that's your schedule or whether that's your actor game plan, because you do it in your life. This is my thing. My thing is, guys, we do this in our lives. For some reason, we don't like doing it as performers very much, or we'll do it for a very short period of time, and then we'll stop and quit for a while, which means you just lose all your momentum. It's no different than working out or watching your weight or whatever it may be. It's the same thing. Keeping a consistent rhythm of pursuing our profession is exactly the key. And one of the things that stops us is exactly why I'm talking today. Make sure you pull out to the macro once in a while and realize this business only occurs in one of three ways. And if you overthink that, and I can overthink shampoo directions, so, trust me. If you overthink that, then you're going to wind up thinking and feeling about one of these two other things that are not related to the you of what you're doing. Yeah, consistency is it's the key in life, Sheeta. Unfortunately, routine is routine. Because too often, guys, in our profession, we look at the process. Come on, trust me. Hello, I've had 46 representatives, and we spend a good percentage of our days sometimes just being pissed off our representative isn't doing more for us. Now, I respectfully understand that happens, and that's normal, and that's human. But if that's where you consistently stay, it's going to be, what if happenstance happens? That's always my point. If you spend too much time being angry at the industry, then the magical moments that Carla just posted a little while ago, you miss them. Sometimes you don't notice them. Sometimes when they happen and you notice them, your anger spills out just a little bit and it makes you that gross actor person none of us want on our set. As I made a commitment to myself a long time ago, and people who know me know that I'm both a giving person with a warm, sensitive heart, and I'm also chippy and edgy smartass. That's me. That's what I am. That's what I've always been. So for me to be edgy or irritated at this profession, not real difficult. I've been doing it a long time. I just read for the 5th time yesterday for SWAT. But you know what? They've read me 5 times. So you can choose to look at that either way you want. But if you don't carry the right macro perspective into a lot of what we do about this business, then there's a mild possibility that not only will you miss some of the happenstance that happens around us all the time, the magical moments, but you won't handle them very well. Remember, I'm on your side. I'm doing this yes, thanks, Carla. I'm doing this because I want to. It's important to me. It's been a passion of mine for 3+ decades. I don't want those moments to be missed because you don't basically grasp the moments in which you fit and function into the process, you fit and function into happenstance, and you fit and function into something that you are driving or creating. You can only get a representative. I promise you, horse, water, lead, drink. You can't make them be more enthusiastic about you. The only thing that's going to make a representative most of the time more enthusiastic about you is because you're booking shit and cashing checks. And that's just the truth and reality of doing something for money. That's why I draw such a distinct line in my book and everywhere else about money. You choose to do performing for money, whole different ballgame. You can't necessarily drive happenstance. What you want to do with happenstance when happenstance happens to you is you want to make sure you assess where you are. You want to make sure you assess the environment. You want to make sure you assess to whom you're speaking and what is their title or position in this profession. And what you want to do is actually have it be a very short, brief conversation in which you know you walk away with them having enjoyed your company and having them as a possible thought think, that was a cool actor, because the unconscious part of that is not I want them on my set, but more reaction than not to most folks is, ooh, I don't want them on my set. And so you just in those days, that's why I always equate that on my set stuff to when you've sat down in your life and done party invitations. Because we've all sat down to do party invitations and they're people that we like, but we're not inviting them to this party. Like, guys, that's a lot of what this profession is. Every commercial, every play, every show, every job, everything that's a small family having a party in the backyard, wherever the backyard may be. It could be shooting in New Zealand or shooting down the street from my house, but it's still a party that you're invited to. You can't forget that, man. And yes, it takes a great deal of cultivation. So this is why I do conversations like this that are a little more, esoteric and ethereal, because we don't stop and think, oh, which one does this fall into real quick? Am I driving the car? Is this some just accidental cool shit? Or is this related? Peace, Paul. Love you, man. Have a great weekend. Or is this something that's being driven out of the process? And we have to function and pursue, act and react accordingly. But at the end of the day, as I get close to the end of the conversation today, is remember, the third avenue is you. And what the avenue means is that's something that you're generating, you are creating, you are planning, you are doing the tasks or making the effort to attend. It's the you driving. When happenstance happens, that's just life driving the car. And then you take over the wheel somewhere along the way after the instant moment of happenstance occurring and kind of bump along as the passenger in it to make sure you get to the destination of having had a good happenstance experience. The process is driving that bus. You may have gotten the agent. You may have procured the manager. You may talk to them. You may do all of those things, but they are driving the bus. And there's an old, I guess, parable or proverb. It's not in the Bible, I don't think, but it did start with the phrase, God grant me the strength to change the things that I can, the patience to accept the things I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. That's what this conversation is about. It's the wisdom to understand the three avenues at all times, and don't ever forget them. When the process is driving the bus, you can only tinker with some of the outside things to get it to run better. When happenstance is driving the bus, you have to accept in the moment you're more of a passenger than the driver, but you really like it to be a good ride that you get to go on again and again because it creates something long term. But most of what you're going to do in this profession to build your career is you. What you plan on, what you make the effort to do regularly. Okay? Guys, that is a wrap. We're almost right at the 30-minute mark, and I'm punctual. That is a wrap on three avenues. It will be on the grid for a while. Thank you for being here. It is April Fool's Day. Please go play at least one joke on someone, just because everyone needs a laugh at this freaking point. You're welcome, Sheeta. And everybody, have a tremendous weekend and a safe weekend. Have fun, and we'll see you guys on Monday. Holla! Peace out. Bye-bye.